the start of this year, I found myself with my photography really struggling. I feel like the photos we take and, our photography in general is really inspired by what's around us and who's around us. And this is where Kira comes in. She's one of my best friends, but location wise, she couldn't be further from me. But earlier this year, she kind of came to me and said, look, do you want to do a road trip from New Jersey, New York, all the way to Vancouver in Canada? Which I said yes to, obviously. The itch to leave and get away was finally being scratched, and that's kind of why at the drop of a hat I booked my flights, booked everything, got the time of work, and yeah, the next thing I know, I'm on a plane. After a late night flight and crippling travel anxiety, I got into JFK and landed, and Kira picked me up at the airport, which was great. But to be honest, the only thing I really wanted to do is just get to her place and just pass out and just kind of recoup from the travel. I hate flying, and I don't really ever think I won't hate flying. It's the worst experience ever. So, morning one. With morning one, we woke up at Lake Erie, and Kira wanted to stop by the beach. Lake Erie is really cool. You got all the stories of cryptids and all the other spooky things like Bigfoot and aliens around there, which I was really into. So that was a really nice thing to go and see. Found myself a fire pit, which you could tell the local teenagers were using to probably drink their nights away, and it warmed me with a sense of nostalgia. So yeah, this is the first time I kind of got to pick up the camera and fire something off, and I really enjoyed just trying to capture the vibe. And yeah, the sense of nostalgia that this place kind of brought to me was a really good start to the trip. We had a big old drive that day, and to be honest, I didn't film anything. It was my first full day driving in the USA. Yeah, I didn't really want to crash, and again, we were just getting as many miles under our feet as possible. The next stop was my family friends in Lake Michigan, who offered to let us stay with them for a night, which was amazing, and it was great catching up with everybody. I think we worked out 10 or 11 years since I last saw them, so catching up with everybody was really, really nice. Took a walk out by Lake Michigan and saw the sunset there after having some food, and needless to say, I was pretty annoyed I didn't actually bring my camera in the end. It was one of those ones where it was just one of the best sunsets I've ever seen, even though it was pretty cold for mid-August. It brought back a lot of good memories being here. I spent a lot of my summers here as a kid, so I really enjoyed being there with my best friend and getting to share that kind of experience and memories which I had when I was younger. The light here was also pretty special. Drying off and packing up, it was kind of time to hit the road and get going nice and early. This day was also pretty ruthless, 13 hours of driving in the end. We ended the day in South Dakota, a little campsite off the side of a highway. We were just kind of edging into Wyoming potentially, but we'd been through a few states, and by the end of it we were just knocked out. We didn't film anything, didn't need to. We came across this little Wild West village, which I really adored. I got to finally breathe with my camera in hand and kind of take it all in, and this is my first time really getting to spend some time shooting some stuff. As you can tell, I took quite a lot of photos here. My favorite touch was this really accurate saloon with some nice rooms and some opportunities to shoot with some really interesting like natural light coming through the windows and stuff, and I thought it was a lot of fun. On the way out, there was a little gas station with goats. Not too sure whose goats, but there was goats. So obviously we had to take a picture there. Badlands National Park is a national park that I've not really taken much interest in before, let alone really ever heard of, and it really did not disappoint when we got there. A really light hike was needed here. It was pretty hot, so it felt like a long time, but the view we got from that was gorgeous in the end, which was nice. The vibes were straight out of Arias's Midsummer with the cliff scene. Yeah, that one. It was really cool. The color palette here was really washed out, and I think the colors I captured here were really interesting. Look, I've been to Mount Rushmore before, and I've seen an episode of Phineas and Ferb when I visited as a kid, but in all honesty, the whole thing's kind of underwhelming.
Not in the state of South Dakota, that are going to directly impact where you are sitting right now.
There was a ranger giving a talk, and that was pretty cool, but the highlight of this day was Devil's Tower. We rolled in at about golden hour, which was really nice, and I think it was the perfect time to start shooting. I really like the photos I got here. For me, there's a sense of warmth in them, and it tells a certain period of time between, these trees being chopped down or burned down, and there still being life around there, and oddly, a sense of silence around the whole area. So the next day, we woke up in Ten Sleep, Wyoming. It was a cool little brewery with a campground, which Kira found like last minute on Airbnb, and it was really sweet. We woke up early that day as the end goal was to get to our campsite in Yellowstone, so we hit the road really early, until we didn't. I'm not a car guy and I don't know much about cars, but Kira's muffler started to fall apart as we drove away down the dirt track. After a phone call with a real man, her father, he suggested we got to a garage really quick, even though it was a Sunday. After calling every local business in the area, it just wasn't looking hopeful for us at all. This is where I really got a sense for small town America, and everything that kind of comes along with it really humbled me. We were struggling and stranded with our car just not working, and not really anybody in the area able to fix it that day, until a guy came along and kind of approached us in the parking lot and offered to weld the car back for us off his own back, and it was really appreciated from us. And this was something really special in my opinion. It's the type of thing that you just won't really find in a lot of other places in the world. The sense of just being friendly to others for the sake of being friendly. I've traveled with Kira a lot, and I've kind of become a bit of her personal photographer, especially when we travel. So her Instagram looks great. You're welcome, Kira. Uh-huh.
And Yellowstone's over here. So it's right here and Yellowstone's this way. So we should drive through it.
En route to our campsite, we rolled into Lake Yellowstone. It was getting late in the evening, so we were really lucky to have a small patch of the beach just all to ourselves. We camped just outside of Yellowstone and the Tetons, which was really cool, and we decided to spend the first day in Grand Teton National Park. Jackson Hole was pretty nice. It was the most expensive place we'd been so far. It gave South Park vibes with more cowboys. But most of the day I spent in anticipation of the last stop. The iconic TA Modern Barn, built in 1913, is a really iconic image which thousands of photographers have captured over the years, and I really wanted my own version of this image, so yeah. I really like these images, and the Sony a7 IV's low light performance really shines here in my opinion. Especially because we got here around blue hour, which was just the best vibes for these photos. Also, the realization that I was staring at the real life version of a Kanye album cover was kind of cool.
Yellowstone.
Having gone to Yellowstone as a kid, I was really excited to revisit and just take it all in. We had one day to see all the main locations, so we hit all the main places like the filthy tourists we are. The geysers were really cool and we got to see Old Faithful explode. But nothing really preps you for the smell of those, and you'll never really forget it either. Once again, another quite popular shot of Yellowstone, but I'm glad to have my own version, and I feel like mine's slightly unique with the background of the quite dramatic clouds coming in and the rain. This was really nice to see. This photo for me is really nice. It has a sense of nostalgia, which I think in like 20, 30 years, we're going to look back on and talk about the good old days and the good old road trips we used to do. And I'm excited for that, to be honest.
Set sail and
Yeah.
party hard. Some apple buns. That's good.
A running theme through this road trip was seeing the Tesla Cybertrucks and thinking they're stupid and kind of thinking they're cool at the same time. I'm still undecided, to be honest. Our last stop was some pretty thermal pools, but I couldn't help be distracted by Kira's Nautical Facts shirt. The next stop was Glacier National Park, about a 9-hour drive, but I couldn't help not unleash my inner Bella Swan vibes in this kind of moody, rainy, almost Pacific Northwest.
CC9. Yeah. Service again.
Maybe.
Okay.
So I'm debating whether I see this out here so I can then move.
Doing a cross-Canadian road trip with.
Glacier National Park is stunning, I think. But one day we had there, it really pissed it down, but it kind of set the vibe and the tone of cloudy and moody, and I think it was a nice switch up of vibe compared to the other places we've seen so far. I really like this shot. There's a sense of drama to it, which I personally really like. But this little car in there for scale adds some action, which I really enjoy. I swapped out from driving on this one. My British driving ability is not good enough for a snowy mountain. Because of the weather, we had to drive out and back around the park to get back to where we wanted to be. We stopped at a place called Goat Lake, with a severe lack of goats but some pretty sweet views overall. It was getting late and kind of dark, but we still wanted to do one more hike. With a can of bear spray in hand, we ended up hiking the Trail of the Cedars. It's not a tree. With plenty of bear sightings that day, we kind of pushed it into gear and just kind of speed ran the whole trail with a bit of anxiety behind us. But I think the pictures I got were kind of cool. Getting over the border was the next goal, and getting up into the land of maple syrup and hockey. Up stupidly early, we ended up driving to Banff to meet our friends Will and Bart. Bart is one of the coolest people I have ever met, and I have the pleasure of him being in my life, and he's a great guy. And it was really sweet just bumping into him in this little mountain town in the middle of nowhere, unexpected. But after going 4 ways on a B&B in Calgary, it was time to say goodbye to Bart and go and get some breakfast. The Three Lakes hike was a pretty exhausting one, but in my opinion, my favourite. scenery was stunning, but I couldn't help but get distracted by these little guys. The small outlook at the top of a mountain with years of carvers' names carved into it, it kind of had to be added to. Maybe I'll see it again one day. But then it was time to hike back down and get to our hotel. We stayed at the Fairmont Banff Springs, where Will managed to get us a room. Needless to say, we had the most comfortable stay of the entire trip, with a rose shampoo being the highlight of the room. The view was a nice touch too. And then I stopped filming. At least for a few days, that is. See, our next stop was Vancouver, our last stop. Road trips aren't all crazy moments. Sometimes they're just long silences with your best friend, listening to music and just vibing in each other's presence. Kira had to move into her new place and she started college classes within those days as well, so we were pretty busy helping her move in. And then I had a day to myself where I just spent the day walking around the city and just taking it all in, just my phone and my headphones. I didn't even need to bring my camera. I just wanted to be able to experience Vancouver firsthand. Going back to comparing my life in the UK to then being in Vancouver, I saw a side of people which I haven't seen in a really long time. A sense of living in the moment. People enjoying nature and just the city around them. Even the city itself not looking like a concrete jungle. It wants to shine and really breathe some life into it, with the buildings and the high-rises being all made of glass and they're really reflecting all the sunlight. The city just feels alive, and like so do the people. Everybody there just has an aura of like optimism about them, and over here it feels like a lot of us has kind of just given up. A lack of living in the moment, which I think going on a road trip, for me at least, really brought that back into me, because I was feeling that way as well. I don't know, it's just something I wanted to talk about, as I think it really impacts our day-to-day lives and our photography and our work in general, and our ability to be creative. I feel like your surroundings inspire you and your work, and sometimes that can be really hard when you're not living around something that inspires you as a creator. With a day to myself, I decided to hit North Vancouver and do a solo hike, and this is when I picked my camera back up. I read about a place called Lynn Canyon where hikers go to a waterfall and kind of just take a load off. So that's where I set my sights for the day. On the final day, I met up with Brooke, one of my other co-counselors from a summer camp I worked on.
Where are we? We're there.
We wandered around some suspension bridges, but of course it was time to fire off some more portraits.
Okay.
It's so shaky.
Trusting Kira, she took us to her I know a spot place. I'm wandering through the dark as the sun set. We reached the end of our road trip.
Boom.
It's a shame you can't go right up to it, but
I know. I think like they open it at some points, but they.
A quiet nostalgia set upon me,
Park. I don't think it's anything.
and here is the final picture I took on this trip. Trips like this are sometimes the breath of fresh air we really need when it comes to our creativity. A revitalization of my photography and shooting some landscapes and travel stuff which I've not really shot before turned out to be a lot of fun. Sometimes in photography we worry about perfect exposure and perfect settings and getting the framing just right, but sometimes we forget to just capture the vibe, not to sound all hippie about it, but capturing the vibe from this trip just felt more important overall. Something I can look back on with nostalgia, but also feel the drive to create more nostalgic memories and do more things like this, which will mean a lot to us in the future. Sometimes you need to realize that photography doesn't just need to be for Instagram or a website or a portfolio. Sometimes it's just for you and the people who you share those memories with.